It's because we have made mistakes. They're not very tolerant of sort of objective external factors. Why? Well, mainly because it's easy for them to interview us, to get our explanation, to see us as responsible, and to criticise what we are doing. So those are just some elements where I think often we sort of approach each other from opposite ends of the football pitch, and we have to understand this. The next thing is to also understand that spin works on both sides. We, of course, indulge, it has to be said, in the habits of exaggeration, emphasis on the positive, spin, the message of the day. But the media do too. I remember a couple of years ago in Afghanistan we had the New York Times coming out with a story which said 25% of all NATO bombs are intelligent bombs. So, wow, this is progress. 25%, a whole quarter, are now intelligent bombs that hit the target, hopefully, correctly most of the time. Next day, the British Guardian newspaper, up to 75% of all bombs used by NATO in Afghanistan still are dumb bombs. Oh no, really, still 75%? This is scandalous, it's unacceptable. So yes, I mean, we all know this, that it has to be said that spin exists on both sides. There are, as we all know, lies, damn lies, and statistics. And of course, anything can be proven through how you're writing a headline. So with some of those sort of general comments in place, how do I believe that you can manage the media successfully during a crisis situation? Well, in Britain we say that there are three essential rules about your property if you want to have a high value in your house. Location, location, location. And if I can paraphrase, there are three golden principles of dealing with the media: organisation, organisation and organisation. As I mentioned in the Standard, spokesmen may be generals to an extent, but a general needs an army behind him, and a spokesperson needs a good organisation behind him or her. There's too much of a sense, that, Jack Bloggs is a good communicator with a pretty face, who looks good on TV and who can deal with the press, so let's just get Jack Bloggs to go in front of the camera and to handle the media. Well, yes, this is good. You do need good communicators who are quick on their feet, who are fluid and eloquent, naturally, but these people have to have substance, facts, figures, information, good lines, master messages behind them. And so the key thing is organisation. And I'll have a few words to say about this. But first and foremost, one of the things that I learned is do not go in front of the media before you have a clear policy or strategy. It's often believed that the media drive politics, the media drive strategy. I don't believe this for 1 minute. If you have a basically well thought through policy or strategy in any situation, that will be generally convincing to the media. The problem begins when the media rapidly realises that there are contradictions in your strategy. That it's not well thought through, that Mr. X is saying something totally different to Mr. Y. And the key example of this, which I lived through, was when the Clinton administration sent troops to Somalia in 1993. And you all remember, the Black Hawk Down, you've seen the film Black Hawk Down, the helicopter crash, the body of the American pilot being dragged through the streets of Mogadishu. And there was a press storm. And it was not a storm that was, we've suffered a casualty, let's leave. It was that, this is obviously a dangerous mission. Mr. Clinton, what is your policy for handling it? And I remember, because I was in Washington at the time, that the American Secretary of Defense went to the Congress and couldn't answer the questions, couldn't explain what the strategy was, how they were going to cope with an escalation of the violence, why they were there, what the end state was. And of course it was from that moment onwards that the media began to become critical, not because of the fact the Americans were there, not because the Americans cannot suffer casualties, but because there was no thought through policy. Where there is generally, Iraq is obviously a case in point, whatever you think of the war in Iraq, but at least an administration which which knows what it wants, which is determined, which has a clear message, then criticisms are there, but there is no media storm. There is indeed even media support, it has to be said. There are no public demonstrations on the streets, and the country shows, whether you agree with this or not, a certain willingness to accept sacrifice. So the key point is, whatever you do, do not go in front of the cameras until you are totally convinced that you have got a convincing policy or strategy. Journalists do not lose wars for people. They don't. Journalists are a convenient scapegoat, of course. We lost the war in Vietnam because of a hostile press. This is total nonsense. The US lost the war in Vietnam because it lost the war in Vietnam, period. And the press did not create a hostile public opinion. The media was successful at creating scepticism towards the war because public opinion was already sceptical. In other words, the media is more a reflection of public opinion hostility. It doesn't just create it. So if you start blaming the media for your problems, then you have lost the battle. So first of all, make sure you've got a clear strategy. Second thing, information. I used to believe that what the media wanted was clear messages. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys, we're going to win, they're going to lose. No. Media are not interested in political messages. Basically, what journalists want is information. And if you want them to convey your message, you have to establish that you are a credible source of information. If you can't tell the journalist how many planes went out, how many bombs were dropped, how many planes came back, what were the nationalities, then they will not accept to give your message. But this is a key challenge because, of course, in a crisis situation, the media use information at a rapid rate. They want a press conference every hour. You cannot survive 24 hours with a given amount of information. You have to be a source of information all the time. And you have to be a source of better and more information than your competitors, because you have to feed the beast. Cars do not run on empty. Well, the media does not run on empty either. The media runs on information, fresh sources of information. So one of the challenges is to perpetually be able to generate information, which means that you have to have basically people out there in the field who are able all the time quickly to funnel up the chain of command the most recent facts and information. You can keep the press occupied at your place by informing them. If you come out and say, sorry, no news today, we don't have anything to say today, nothing has happened, then the press go and talk to your adversaries or your rivals and competitors. And then, instead of you dominating the news agenda,